Am I the butthole for telling my estranged daughter that I have no interest in fixing our relationship since she married a man older than me? Might be a but who cares at this point? Well, I guess you care if you post it on Am I the Butthole subreddit, right? My estranged daughter Lexi got married to her husband Brendan when she was 27. I've never liked him, nor did I approve of their relationship, and I was very vocal about this. I told her if she went with the wedding, she'd lose me for life. This marriage was a joke, and I was being humiliated by my friends because of this. She thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. I didn't show up at her wedding, which I heard was grand. And I sent her an email detailing how I didn't value us being in contact anymore, and I would appreciate it if she stayed away from me. Blocked her on all social media and ignored her every time she came to visit my wife. Recently, found out she's pregnant. Lord help those babies, my wife told me. I guess they expected me to be all jolly about this, but I'm not. I'm not interested in being in her life again. My wife called me cruel for this, but my sons say it's my choice, and one added how he would be embarrassed too if it was him. She reached out 3 days ago in an email saying how she wanted to fix this so our kids could have a grandpa. Isn't her husband already their grandpa? She said she was fine with us not being close anymore, but if I could spare her kids out of this. I didn't respond and told my wife to tell her to leave me alone next time they met, since she obviously couldn't take a hint. This caused a huge fight between me and my love. She said she couldn't possibly stand for me being this cruel to my daughter and said I either have to fix this or our marriage would have long-lasting damages, not divorce. Am I the butthole? I did not agree with this marriage, nor do I respect it. I just don't think I should waste my time forcing myself to be around her and her family. Okay, boomer. I mean, so long for the unconditional father's love, right? Your poor daughter, and also your sons, give off very bad vibe. I think that they hope that if they side with you, they will get more inheritance or something. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. Am I the butthole for uninviting my brother's friend from my wedding, since they're not a couple? My brother, who is 21, is very private. 2 years ago, this friend of his suddenly became a significant part of his life. They lived together for a lot of the year. My brother always talks about him when they're not together, and his friend is always hanging around for the rest of the year when he's living with our parents, even though he lives pretty far away. Everyone thinks they're a couple. My mom asked me about it after my sister had mentioned it to her, and I'd already assumed. My brother hasn't had many girlfriends, and his friend seems gay. To me, the ultimate proof was that his phone's wallpaper used to be a picture of them together, and when my mom asked about where they were in it, he acted cagey and changed it. They are very affectionate, and my brother acts like a different person with him. Our parents include his friend like they do my fiancé and our younger sister boyfriend. Mom is worried that he hasn't come out because he feels unaccepted, so she's made an effort to be inclusive. I personally do not believe they're together anymore after my brother told me a story about a bad date he went on. I like his friend and I think he's nice, but he's a lot. He's always shown up every time he's invited, and he's loud and chatty. I know he wouldn't mix well with my fiancé's more traditional family, based on his personality. Her parents are paying for the wedding too. We've invited family only, with partners counting. And we invited my brother and his friend together, under the impression that the friend counted under partner. It's very feasible for us to rescind our invitation to him, so we did. And I just told my brother it's not fair to other guests that cannot just grab a mate and bring them too. His friend doesn't work, so it's not like we imposed. My brother asked why I couldn't just make an exception for him, and I said that wasn't fair. He asked if teenagers dating count as partners, because my sister's boyfriend is invited. And he told me to just admit I don't like his friend, which isn't true. I made the mistake of saying that he wouldn't have had a good time with my fiance's family anyway, which made my brother say we have ulterior motives to uninvited him. Again, not true. I get friendships are important and I don't mean to devalue that, but we're not having friends as plus ones, and my fiancé and I do not feel like we're losing anything by not having him. My fiancé even says it's a relief because of her family, but I do feel bad for my brother, and I feel like this is casting a shadow over things when I do ultimately like his friend. My mom and sister have been treating me like I'm the devil for this because they believe they're in a relationship and I'm being unfair to him too. I'd feel less bad if I didn't invite him at all, but the more I think about it, going out of my way to rescind the invitation seems like a crappy thing to do. Am I the butthole? I think OP is a butthole, but not for the wedding invitation thing, because ultimately it is his wedding and he is in control who comes and who is invited. But he is an asshole for assuming things. Until you are told any information, especially this private information, you cannot assume someone is gay. You cannot assume someone is pregnant. Just don't do it. Am I the butthole for asking my brother-in-law to stay at a hotel? I have been married to my husband for 5 years. And we've been living in his parents' house since we got married. My in-laws, who have since passed away, left the house to both my husband and his brother. However, his brother lives in a different state and only visits once a year. Since moving in, we've expanded and renovated the house, with his brother contributing a small amount. The problem arises when his brother visits, as he stays for 2-3 weeks, which is much longer than just a weekend. This extended stay frustrates me because it feels like I have no privacy in my own home. I know he's well off and can afford a hotel, but he never does so. This year, he made 2 trips, one at the beginning of the year and one this month. The last one lasting almost 3 weeks. I finally reached my limit and politely suggested that he book a hotel room for his next visit if it would be as long. This offended him since he still considers this his house too. He didn't confront my husband about it, but it seems he told one of their cousins. And now many family members I interact with daily are upset with me, something he doesn't have to deal with because he doesn't live here. My husband thinks I shouldn't have said anything, but I can tell he is also relieved that someone finally did. I don't think I'm in the wrong because this is my home and his brother no longer lives here. Oh, do you want him to move back in? And it is not your home. It is home of your husband and your brother-in-law. And until the day your husband or you buy off his part, it is not your home. Am I the butthole for telling my daughter to get off her high horse? So I am 54 and my daughter is 20. And she has a troubled academic history. She barely passed in high school, dropped out of college, went back briefly and stopped going again after our dog passed away. Happened within the same year and a half. She's attending part-time now for the past year and has gotten 80s, 90s in the 5 classes she has taken. She has only been able to take 2-3 classes per semester due to her part-time status. My daughter mentioned how she was only 3% away from an A+ average in gym, and my wife asked, "What do you need to do to get 90s?" My daughter then got all defensive and asked my wife to stop saying that. My daughter went on about how she now has amazing grades, and I say, "You're taking 2 classes. Get off your high horse." This led to a huge argument. So, am I the butthole? Yes, of course you are. Why not just say, "Yay, well done"? It clearly means a lot to her. Just support your daughter. Am I the butthole for being too good of a DJ for my friend's kid's birthday party? A buddy of mine, who is 27, last week asked if I, 26-year-old male, would DJ for his kid, who is 7, at his birthday party. I have been trying out DJing more lately as a side thing, and I really appreciated the offer, so I said yes. The problem is, I don't really know how to interact with kids, much less what they listen to. Whatever, I thought. It can't be that different from what most people listen to, right? Turns out, I was both kinda right and kinda wrong. The party started off well. I was playing mostly 2010s era pop music, stuff I heard at birthday parties years ago, etc. They were probably like 30-something kids all running around, but they didn't seem to be too into what I was playing. Then I had no idea. Kids like TikTok, right? What if I played a song that was popular on TikTok? Well, according to the parents, I picked the wrong song. I chose Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. Admittedly, I kinda felt like I was pushing the envelope with this one, but I thought it would be at least funny for the parents. And the kids weren't really paying attention anyway. To my surprise, the kids knew the song and loved it. They were singing along and running around even crazier than before. Then my buddy came up to me and told me to stop, because the song was inappropriate. I told him that we heard way worse crap on the radio when we were kids, and that this was no different, and that the kids were loving it. He didn't care and told me to shut down the set and leave. I asked if I could at least be paid before going, and he refused. Am I the butthole? Honestly, I don't know at this point. Maybe it's a troll post? Because I cannot imagine a real person writing this. I'm not the biggest Kendrick Lamar connoisseur, but I know the song and it's not kid-friendly. Like, not at the slightest. And if you're trying to DJ as a side hustle, why not research your audience? Kendrick Lamar at 7-year-old kids party. Really? My first Karen? So yesterday afternoon, me and my dog are sitting in the car at Walmart waiting for my husband who ran in to grab a few things. It's not super hot, but it's clear summer is on its way. All 4 windows were open, and I had the keys in case it became too hot and I wanted AC. From the next car over, I hear a woman saying, "Ah, what a pretty doggy!" She's a pretty girl. Have never had people compliment my dog so much, lol. I look over smiling and waiting for the inevitable "can I pet her?" question. Instead, she says, "And what disgusting owners!" She reaches in her car and pulls out a bottle of water like she's about to give it to me. Quick background about my dog. She came from mistreating home where they kept her kennel 24/7. I'd like to reintroduce a kennel, but later on. I don't want her to associate it with punishment anymore. She's also got separation anxiety, so she comes with us when we go out. There is a dog bowl in the car, and I always grab her a refrigerated water before we leave the house. She says something about how dogs should be left at home and how thirsty the dog must be. But the dog wasn't even panting at that moment. Pissed off, I grab the water bottle that's in the car to show her, as well as the bowl. Of course, she doesn't apologize or say anything else. Inwardly, I prepare to explain to the lady that she cannot be left alone at home, that she'd actually be miserable and destructive. Instead, I roll up the windows, turn on the AC, and flip her off. Not only I am not good at talking when upset, I fumble and stammer my words. I doubt hearing them would do any good anyway. This old, unpleasant woman just wants to make assumptions and be a butthole. Not sure if this makes her a Karen or more involvement and interference is required, but screw that dumb butt lady! Exactly, screw her. I understand if she would ask, "Do you have water for your dog? Today is a hot day. Do you need help? I have an extra bottle of water. Do you want it?" No, she's just like, "Oh, you disgusting." Ugh, lady, look in the mirror. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. Rant from pet sitter dealing with an overbearing dog mom Karen. Okay, I apologize, this is long, but I just wanted to vent about a frustrating experience I had with a client the other day. I'm a dog walker, pet sitter, and have been working for a small company for 6 months now. I've owned pet all my life and have worked in a doggy daycare before, so it isn't like I had no prior experience working with animals before working with this company. Now, even with my prior experience, there are still learning curves with each new pet in my care, and it sometimes takes me a bit to figure out different equipment like harnesses, collars, cones, especially because I want to make sure they are on correctly for the animal's safety. On Tuesday morning, I had 2 German Shepherds to feed, walk, and give medication. One of the dogs wears a cone due to a medical issue that he is recovering from, and I needed to take the cone off to feed him. When I went to put the cone back on, there was a broken piece hanging that I didn't want to mess with even further, so it was taking me some time to figure out the correct way to get the cone on. I started hearing some noise coming from the dog camera, and it was the owner. It was hard to hear what she was saying, but she sounded frustrated. As I'm working through trying to get the cone on, she starts yelling at me, "That's not right!" So I take a second try and look at the cone to put it on the right way, and the dog goes to lick its paw, and the owner yells, "Do you even have a dog? He's not supposed to do that!" Like, duh, I know. So now I'm flustered and I am trying to get this cone on and make sure it's on right. As I've almost got it, she calls me and basically tells me it shouldn't be that hard to put the cone on, which I agree, but it was my first time putting on a cone like that, and having her yell at me wasn't helping the situation. She just talked to me in such a condescending way and treated me like I was a stupid person for not immediately getting it right. I also want to mention that this walk took place around 6 to 6:30 a.m. on the East Coast. Once the owner called me, the caller ID was from California. So this means she was up at 3 a.m. watching my every move for the whole visit. I was warned from a coworker the night before that she watches the cameras, but this felt extreme. My coworker also said that she had a similar experience with the client being rude to her and wanted to warn me ahead of time. Also, apparently after my visit, she called one of my managers and was rude to her too. Now, I completely understand as a pet owner, you want to make sure your animals are being cared for properly, especially ones with medical issues, and I also understand it's scary leaving your pet in the care of someone you don't know who isn't super familiar with them. Of course, if there is something I am doing wrong, I want to fix it right away and make sure I'm doing it correctly. But there is no need to yell at me and make me feel stupid in the process. There is a way to talk to people in a respectful manner, and yelling and getting frustrated is only going to make it harder to do my job. The only thing I will give her is that she did apologize on the phone for getting frustrated. But the apology means nothing because she continued to be rude to my managers and other coworkers. According to the owner of the company, she had called to complain with nearly every visit, although we were all doing our best to follow the rules exactly as written in her notes. The rules kept changing too, and it was just so frustrating to try and keep her satisfied. She's just unreasonable and impossible to work with, so luckily we have fired her as a client moving forward. It's such a shame she is the way that she is, because her dogs are absolute sweethearts. Thanks for anyone who had read all of this. I just needed to write it out and vent my frustrations. Oh, we got you! And I am super glad that you will not have to deal with her anymore. Followed for close to a mile by Crazy Karen while walking my dog. Last night, around 10 p.m., I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood. We don't have a yard, so we have to take her 3 times per day so she can do her business. I always pick up after her, and people usually give a friendly wave when they see us, but not tonight. My dog starts doing her duty at the edge of someone's yard while I stand on the street holding the leash. I'm starting to pull out my poop bag when this woman comes running up to us yelling, "Don't let your dog poop here!" I was surprised and weirded out, but I told her, "Don't worry, I am picking it up." She keeps getting closer to us yelling, "No! Don't let your dog poop on my property! My window is open, and I don't want to smell it! Control your dog! Make your dog stop!" My dog is mid-third at the moment, so I explained that dogs don't work that way. I told her I cannot stop her from pooping, but I will pick it up. The lady is not listening to me and just keeps getting closer to us, yelling about the dog poop or something. My dog starts growling at her, so I warn her by saying, "Please don't get close to my dog, she does bite." Then the lady says, "Okay, I'm calling the cops, they're gonna arrest you." I say that's fine and ask her to please go in her home and call the cops. She tries to enter her house, but it seems whoever she lives with has locked her out of the house. I wonder why. She starts running toward me again, and I again warn her that my dog will bite. My dog is growling and barking now because dogs don't like screaming Karens in their face. Karen starts screaming at me to pick up the poop and that she's calling the police to have me arrested, etc. I said, "Ma'am, I'll deal with that later. Right now, your hostile behavior is creating an unsafe situation for me and my dog, so we're going to leave now." She starts screaming profanities, calling me names, and chasing after me. I just continue to walk away, thinking it will end there. Nope. She continues to follow me down the street. I hear her yelling into her phone at the police to come arrest me. I hear her telling them I threatened her with dog bite. She has a thick Asian accent. I just keep walking, knowing the cops are telling her to go home and they'll deal with it later, or never. She continues to walk behind me at about a 15-foot distance. She's now yelling in another language at someone who I assume is the person who locked her out of the house. I hope she'll stop following me eventually so I can go home. I don't want her to see where I live, so I take several detours, but she just keeps following me from 15 feet away. I don't have my phone, so I cannot call for help. I decide to head into the downtown area to find someone to help. The lady followed me almost a mile into town. From 15 feet away, she just silently followed me, walking my dog through neighborhoods, business districts, and across the highway into town. She had her phone out recording me. I was getting really annoyed and made it to a busy bar with 5 men standing outside. Unfortunately, they are all speaking in a foreign language as well. I turn around and tell the lady to stop following me. She starts yelling, "You follow me back to my house for police to arrest you. You threaten me dog bite. Follow me now. Police won't arrest you." I told her, "Sure, I'll follow you. You lead the way." She almost fell for it, but she saw me try to slip away and turned around and started her whole yelling thing again. The young men outside the bar just kept talking amongst themselves. I continued walking through town with the lady following, recording me on her phone. I finally ran into a woman who approached me with a very concerned look on her face. I said, "Can you please help me? This lady has been following me for over an hour." The nice lady said, "I know, I've been watching this go on for a minute." She confronted the Karen, telling her to leave me alone. The nice lady looked at me and said, "Just go." So while Karen was busy yelling at the nice lady about how my dog pooped or whatever, I just started running. I ran through a couple businesses onto a back street and managed to lose Karen. I walked a full mile back to my house and I locked the door behind me. I don't know what kind of crazy that was. All I know is that I feel really bad for whoever was inside that house with the door locked. I hope they're okay. Well, hopefully next time you will have your phone and you will record the Karen back. Today we effed up by getting to a parking spot first. My friends and I got together today and decided to grab a coffee in the downtown area around one friend's apartment. It was pretty busy today because a nearby college had graduation earlier in the day, and everyone was either trying to get lunch or was just wanting to walk around in their regalia. I had no problem with that. We were trying to find a parking spot, any spot would have sufficed. And were rounding the corner near a public lot when we saw someone parked at the curb starting to pull out. We stopped, waited for them to leave, and slowly started to pull in. The exit to the public lot was right there, and the traffic going the other direction was busy. So my friend, who was driving, didn't want to hit anyone or cause an accident. This one when we hacked up. Someone who was coming out of the public lot had their turn signal on, but didn't cut their wheel or angle their car towards the spot on their passenger side. They weren't even actually out of the lot, or even in the curb cut. There was no indication they had intent to park there, except their turn signal, which, when turning into oncoming traffic, only meant they were turning. In lieu of any indication they were going for the spot, my friend slowly pulled forward. Immediately, the driver starts honking, not a long honk, more like a lot of short honks. And both he and the woman in the passenger seat start flicking their arms toward the spot. We were already halfway into the spot with people behind us in traffic, so we parked quick to let them pass. The driver immediately pulled up next to us in the middle of a busy street, and the entire car rolled down their windows to scream at us. They were so close that we could hear them shouting even though our windows were closed. I didn't think to record until the backseat passenger flipped us off, then stuck her arm out of the window to emphasize that she was flipping us off, as if we couldn't see it already. I was more worried that she was reaching toward my friend's car to throw something or try and hit the windows. They mimicked crying, which made no sense because we were just sitting there staring at them in confusion, and kept flipping us off and shouting until they drove away. The backseat passenger tried to throw her coffee at my friend's car, but did such a piss-poor job of it that most of it was on the outside of their car. Barely a tablespoon actually hit my friend's car. Don't worry, I started recording the minute the back passenger stuck her arm out of the window to flip us off. The coffee place we were going to was right next door, so we just got out and went about our day. One of us did stay behind to make sure they could film if the family came back and tried to annoy us again. Luckily, they did not. My friend thinks that they didn't come back because I was recording what they were doing, and you can see two of their faces and what they are doing very, very clearly. I cannot post it here because there is no option to post a video, but if I could, I would. I've never had that happen to me before, and honestly, it was kind of funny to watch someone get that upset over a parking space. It wasn't even marked or metered or anything. It was just empty parkable space. Crazy. It's a pity that we couldn't watch the video. I'm sure we would enjoy it. My family views my decision to move as a betrayal. I don't know what to do. So I and my husband have made the decision to move to another state. I knew my family was unhappy about this. What I didn't realize was they actually see it as a betrayal. My mom told me they wonder if they've done something wrong to make us want to leave. And one of my brothers has stopped coming around when I'll be there, apparently because he has written off our relationship and just wants to cut the cord. I am devastated. I love my family. They're the only reason I've stayed where I am for so long. But I hate it here. I've hated it here for so long, and it's getting worse. And now I have a daughter. I don't want to raise her here. Hobbs and I did a lot of research into other states, and we found a place where we think she will thrive. At least that's the hope. And I know my relationship with my family, especially my brothers, will change. But I really hoped we would figure it out and stay as close as possible. The realization that I might lose them, that I'm hurting them so much, is hurting me. But I genuinely believe that this is the right decision for my daughter. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say to them to make this better. And I don't want to lose them. Any advice is appreciated. But maybe I'm just screaming into the void. I don't have anyone else I can talk to about this. So thanks for letting me vent. Honestly, I think that the only thing that can be done here is to talk. Only talking can solve this. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. I stopped telling my family pretty much anything going on in my life. So I'm pretty well just realizing how I've been emotionally neglected most of my life growing up. Not to mention the lack of respect my mom and sister have towards me anymore. Tiny background. My family has always been the tough love type of family. Didn't tell each other that we loved each other much. We just kinda knew it. I didn't hear it from mom much. Never was the lovey-dovey type of family with all the hugs and kisses and such. You fall over, get up, you're fine. Never was emotionally open with each other. If we were, it somehow led into some kind of argument. Anyway, a lot of the time growing up, and even currently to this day, I am deemed as a sensitive one. I can't take a joke. So on and so forth. Times I would come to my mom about things going on in my life, and instead of the listening to me with support and understanding, I was met with criticism or judgment. Anytime I would go to my sister to tell her things you should want to talk to your sister about and trust that she would keep in confidentiality, she would break that trust and go to mom about whatever it was. And lately, I have noticed that since moving out in 2020 that my family never really has checked up on me. They don't even text to ask how I'm doing. Only time that I hear from them is if there is some family event that occurs in us having to talk and plan it out what's going on and who's coming or who is driving, etc. Not only that, but anytime I am with my family, mainly my mom and sister, I am suddenly the butt of the jokes that they make, usually including my dating life. Most of the time, I would be excited to tell my family about some new interest I have, whether that be with someone new in my life or whatever new hobby I may have picked up. But it always would result in them laughing and claiming how apparently an ex of mine looked like my dad. My parents divorced when I was approximately 8 years old and laugh about how I have a type in men. Something that pushed me over the edge was the comment my sister made during last Christmas party, and then my mom chimed in with some other joke or hurtful comment. We were all playing Cards Against Humanity, as we do most holidays, and something about the card that I had pulled brought up the topic of my dating life. And my sister brought up apparently having daddy issues, and then my mom chimed in with her comment. I don't remember what she said, because I was simply over here being stuck mentally about why the F my sister would make a joke like that. And they both were laughing about it. That hurt. I played the game for like 5 more minutes and then I said I was done and moved out of the way to sit across the room. Anyway, as the day went on, I was driving back home to my place from my mom's since we had all carpooled, and all I could think about was what my sister had said earlier that day, and I was crying so hard on the way home because I was hurt by her joke. At that point, I had told myself to never tell my family anything about my life that essentially had made me happy within my dating life. Because all they would do is tease me and make fun of my life and the people that I was enjoying life with. I will say that it hurts though, because I had dealt with this BS from my family my whole life, and not to feel safe in telling them personal things anymore has been more of a grieving process for me. First, it was my sister betraying my trust in telling her things I would think a sister would keep to herself, and continue to even do so today. And then it was the fact that my sister and my mom now essentially team up against me anytime I see them, just to make me feel like crap. Now, anytime there is a family event, all I can think is what BS they are gonna pull out of their butts to make fun of me this time. I just never understood it. Why me? Honestly, it is up to you if you want to keep in contact with your family. Well, you keep going to the family events, meaning that it matters to you. So why not just go to the family events and just tell your sister and your mom to go to heck? Because I don't know why, there is no enough information, but I have a feeling that they envy you for some reason. Maybe they are lonely? My mother and sister talk about me behind my back. I'm a 47-year-old divorced single mother of 1. My son is 22 years old and still lives with me. We currently live in my parents' basement apartment. I have one sister who is 41. She has been living with my parents for several years now. My sister has never been married and has no children. My relationship with my sister is horrible. I try to avoid speaking to her or even being in the same space with her, but since we live in the same home, we cross paths sometimes. She fills my mother's head with all kinds of negative things about me, mostly untrue or greatly embellished. My sister has told me on more than one occasion that she resents me for having been married and having had a child because she didn't get to experience those things. I can understand to an extent. However, my ex-husband was physically mistreating and constantly cheated on me, and this is something that my whole family knows very well. One of my sister's favorite things to do is create a fake profile and try to troll mine on my son's social media. We have her actual profile blocked from our Facebook and Instagram pages, So what does she do? She creates a fake profile or has one of her friends try and snoop our social media in order to try and find out what is going on in our lives. As teenagers, my sister and I were never allowed to have guys over in our home, and especially not for overnight visits. I have always felt that this was a really antiquated way of thinking, but it was my parents' rules and I lived under their roof, so I didn't argue. I mention this because my son has a girlfriend who he has now been dating close to a year. She's very sweet and seems to have a good head on her shoulders. I have really grown quite fond of her, and I allow her to visit my son at our house because they aren't teenagers anymore. When my sister sees his girlfriend's car parked in front of our home, she goes outside and takes several pictures of her car and her license plate, and then sends me a text message that says, "We aren't stupid, she shouldn't be over here, that mom and dad's rules." And then she immediately informs my mother about the situation, which causes a poop show. I spoke with my mother about this and told her that I thought that this rule was a little silly for a 22-year-old man. My mother became angry and started talking about how my sister informed her that his girlfriend had practically moved into the basement and that he wasn't going to be having adult time with her down there and that he was a very stupid person. First of all, I live down there as well, and I definitely would have noticed if his girlfriend had moved in, and she most certainly has not. She still lives at home with her parents. Secondly, I never would have dreamed that my mother would ever refer to my child as a very stupid person. So now we come to the icing on the cake. Yesterday, my mother was showing me something on her cell phone that she wanted me to order for her. She handed me her phone and told me that she would be right back. I decided to take a glance at the text that my sister had sent her, while I had the opportunity to do so. The last message that my sister had sent her was on 1st of April 2024. It was a social media post from either my son or his girlfriend announcing that they are having a baby. I had absolutely no idea and was shocked to find out this way. My sister and my mother have known that I'm going to be a grandmother for almost 2 months, and I had no freaking clue. My sister had apparently trolled either his or her social media and obtained this information and then forwarded it to my mother. My mother has said not one word to me. I immediately contacted my son to verify this, and he said they were waiting until she got a little further along to tell me. I feel such anger towards my mother and sister. I feel betrayed by them, and I feel like they're against me in life. I used to have a wonderful relationship with my mother, and now I am so angry and confused as to why she's acting like this. I am currently in the process of trying to find my own place again and get away from this hack. I was just looking for any advice or thoughts on how to handle this with my mother. Well, seems like the mother is totally wrapped up in the lies of your sister. As for your sister, she envies you, like she said, so it is obvious why she's behaving like that. But what bothers me the most, it's not even your sister or your mom, but your son, who announced that he's going to become a father on social media, but he never said anything to you. Usually, when people are waiting to tell everyone that they are becoming parents soon, they are not making any kind of social media announcements. So that is weird. Are you sure you're very close and in good relations with your son? Am I the butthole for canceling our anniversary trip because my parents needed me? My wife and I have been planning a dream trip to Bali for months. It is our 5th anniversary and we haven't had a real vacation in years. Flights, hotels, the whole shebang. Everything was booked and paid for. We were both incredibly excited. Then, a week before our trip, my mom called. She is 62 and my father is 65. They've been struggling financially for a while, but they're too proud to ask for help. This time, their car died, their only means of transportation. They live in a small town with limited public options, and repairs wouldn't be cheap. I knew they wouldn't be able to manage. They wouldn't outright ask, but the desperation in my mom's voice told me everything. So I told my wife we needed to postpone the trip. She was devastated. We'd been looking forward to it for so long, and the money wasn't exactly easy to come by. She argued that we could use the credit on the flights later, but replacing their car would eat into our savings significantly. We had a huge fight. She called me selfish for putting my parents first over our anniversary trip. I told her it was important to help them out, especially since they'd never ask. She said we could have figured something else out, maybe a loan or a smaller car, but the idea of them being stranded just felt wrong. Ultimately, I cancelled the trip. I used the money to buy them a reliable used car. They were incredibly grateful, but my wife still called towards me. She says I ruined our anniversary and that I prioritize my parents over her. Am I the butthole for helping my struggling parents, even if it meant sacrificing our trip? I have two options here. Either you have some kind of trauma connected to your parents and you need to serve them, or your parents are manipulating you because you did way more than you were asked. Why not listen to your wife? If you wanted to help your parents, amazing. Well, you really can get them a cheaper car or a smaller car and maybe pay for a repairment of their existing car, but not just canceling the anniversary trip that you both, I guess, paid for and you both were looking forward to. I cannot even imagine how your wife feels now. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. Am I the butthole for behaving like a child on a stranger's wedding? So my partner got invited to a colleague's wedding and I was his +1. He asked me if I'd really want to come, since I didn't know anyone there and I have social anxiety issues. But I wanted to join him because I kinda like weddings. We went there, I was introduced briefly to some of my partner's colleagues who were there as well, and after dinner, he engaged in a conversation with them. I didn't really know what to do since I felt left out, and my phone had died in the meantime. My ADHD took me to the children's corner where there were coloring books and pencils. My partner caught me coloring a bouquet of flowers and told me that I was embarrassing him in front of his colleagues and that I should stop. I should come dance with them instead. But I hated the music and I did not feel comfortable showing off my questionable dancing skills. So I kept drawing. 2 coloring book pages later, they were gone. And when they didn't come back, I went outside to look for my partner, but he was nowhere near the venue and it was too cold outside for me to go any further. My jacket was in the car and he had the key. At 1 a.m. I had finished coloring the entire book and he was still gone. Everyone else was drunk and the music had gotten better. So I pretended to be drunk as well and entered the empty dance floor, mindlessly spinning around until I felt dizzy. When he came back, he was angry with me for behaving so childish and embarrassing him in front of his colleagues and everyone else for the entire evening. He usually wants to keep work stuff and private stuff separated, and apparently this wedding counted as work stuff for him, so he didn't really want me there, which I was aware of. I still joined him and then complained about being neglected. So, am I the butthole? Yes, you are. I understand that you may have special needs, and that is totally okay, but you also have to respect your partner. And if you are not comfortable being there, you have to communicate it to your partner and maybe ask him to drive you home, call you a taxi. Am I the butthole for asking my daughter to share her money? I have 4 daughters, 29, 23, 16, and 15-year-old. My oldest works a good job and does a side hustle, so she makes really good money for her age. My 23-year-old chose not to go to college. She didn't want to have to do chores and other work at home. She moved out last year and we gave her $25,000, which was her college fund. Unfortunately, rent costs a lot here, so we have to help her out with food, water, expenses pretty often. The $25K was gone in a year. We have to spend lots of money on her so she can afford her life as she doesn't really want to work. My husband isn't able to work much anymore due to health issues and I can no longer afford to support my 23-year-old with my salary. My oldest daughter lives in a pretty rich state and makes quite over 100,000 per year, although she lives in a pretty high cost of living area. This is more than what I make. So I asked my oldest if she could give some money to support her sister. She doesn't want to, as it'll be expensive and she wants to save on a house. But I really want her to, as it'll help her sister a lot. My older daughter told me to tell my youngest to work and not freeload of everyone else. I told her she was being selfish and asked her to pay at least $2,000 per year, and I would ask my 23-year-old to get a part-time job. But she still refused. I think it's selfish of her to put buying a house over helping her sister. She says she'll be willing to help her sister look for a job and to give her $500 a month, not any more than that. I did ask for my daughter to get a part-time job, but she doesn't want to. Now my oldest is upset I'm trying to use her and that I'm spoiling my 23-year-old because she had to work and go to college, but I told her I changed my parenting style. She's still upset. So, am I the butthole? I think there was a mistake in the post because OP asked her oldest daughter to give $2,000 per month, not per year. And the daughter has only agreed to give $500 per month. So I think there was a mistake. But as for being a butthole, oh my god, yes. Your daughter is not responsible for your other children. You are. Well, she's 23, so you're not responsible anymore. She is. Your other daughter is responsible for herself. Let it go. Am I the butthole for calling a girl over dramatic when she was crying after rear-ending me? Last weekend, I attended my brother's college graduation. After the ceremony, I found the rear of my truck had been hit. The other driver was still there. She was an 18-year-old who was crying hysterically while her mom tried to calm her down. The girl apologized profusely and said she had overestimated how much room she had to the back out and hit my car. I wasn't upset because mistakes happen. I asked if she had insurance and she was too worked up to answer. So I turned to her mom and she said yes, they would go get it as well as call the police so there could be an official report for the insurance company. Cool? The girl was still really worked up. I told her it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not upset and accidents happen. She's still a mess when the cops show up. I found this a little over dramatic and admittedly rolled my eyes. I obviously don't know this girl, but it was beginning to feel like she was trying to manipulate her way out of trouble, even though the cop and I both said these things happen and that the insurance would likely take care of it. Eventually, the police left. I told the girl to calm down, it's over, and stop being dramatic. Then I got in my car and was ready to leave. My sister was with me the whole time. She told me I was unnecessarily mean to the girl. I said she was being overdramatic for no reason, especially as no one yelled at her the entire time. My sister pointed out this girl is likely a new driver, probably worried she ruined whoever she was there to celebrate, etc. Plus, she's probably worried about her rates going up, or maybe she has anxiety or whatever. Even if she was trying to manipulate with tears, I didn't have to be a prick. I shrugged it off and let it go. So far, her insurance had been cooperative, and it seems this will all be resolved rather quickly. The subject came up at the party we had for my brother. Most of my family thought that I was being a prick, though some agreed she needed to calm down. Am I the butthole? You're not necessarily the butthole in this situation, but I think that you could have behaved differently. Because can you imagine being 18-year-old with your mom in the car and you get in the car accident? For 18-year-old, it could feel like the end of the world. My aunt stole my inheritance. Then karma struck and her life fell apart. This particular post is 1 year old and it is one of my favorite ever, so I will read this one to you because there is an update. My aunt was one of 2 kids my grandparents had. My mother was the polar opposite to my aunt. She worked from age of 12 in my grandfather's shop, never asked for anything, and eventually managed to start her own business. My aunt never held down a job till the age of 26, was constantly stealing from her parents, and was constantly in trouble. Despite this, my aunt was spoiled by my grandmother, and so were her kids. She had 3 kids from 3 different men, and her first husband was not one of them, if you know what I mean. Didn't matter what my aunt or her kids did, my grandmother would always jump to their defense. She never had time for my mom and her kids unless it was to get something from us. The only reason my mom would visit her because she loved my grandfather. My grandfather passed away in 2004, and a few months after my nan decided to write up a new will. My mother and my aunt were both present for it when she signed it, so they knew what was in it. It made it so that when she passed away, her home would be sold and the money split 25% each to my mom and aunt, and the remaining 50% would go evenly to the grandkids. At the time, the home was worth more than £500,000, so it would be a nice little inheritance, but nothing life-changing. Just to note, £500,000 is $637,000 US. In 2010, my mom passed away after an accident and did not have a current will in place. As she no longer had her business and was renting a house, she didn't have anything of much monetary value. The only thing she was concerned about was what would be done at her funeral should she have passed away, but had told me everything she wanted: the music, the flowers, the coffin color, and even what people were to wear at the funeral. She wanted people to wear bright, warm colors. So when she passed, my aunt and nan took over all the arrangements and tried to undo all the things I told them. The songs were going to be songs I knew mom didn't like, the flowers were all the wrong colors, and they picked a hideous coffin. With the help of my siblings, we were able to change a few of the things back to what they were supposed to be, but the coffin couldn't be changed for some reason, and my nan refused to let people come dressed as clowns, so it was all black. It was frustrating. After the funeral, my nan had her will changed. My siblings and I were told by our aunt that she did not have any involvement with the writing of the will, and our nan told us that she changed it so that mom's share would go to her kids instead. All good, we thought. After mom passed away, my nan just stopped talking about my mom. At first, we thought it was because she was still recovering from losing her daughter, but even 5 years after mom passed, she still wouldn't talk about her. Even if you brought up a story about mom, nan would very obviously try and change the subject, usually about how hard my aunt and her crappy kids had it. And if you went to talk to her about your own problems, she would somehow bring it back to my aunt. I had suffered a mental breakdown after my mom's passing, so you can imagine how much it hurt to hear, well, X has had it so much worse. In 2016, my nan passed away. She had written down what she wanted to be done for her funeral. And it was basically all the same things she had picked out for my mom's funeral. Even the music to be played. I don't know why she tried to have a dress rehearsal funeral using my mom as the stand-in, but it was obvious that's what she was trying to do. So after a couple of months, our siblings and I were waiting to hear about the will reading. And my aunt kept telling me, oh, it'll be another month before we can do the reading. I didn't mind. I wasn't fussed about the money, to be honest. But my oldest brother was hoping to use the money to pay for a honeymoon for him and his then fiancée, and my younger brother was about to start university, so it would be a heck of a help. Eventually, my dad bumped into the solicitor my grandmother had used to deal with her will and asked what was happening. The solicitor let slip that the will had already been read and that it left everything to my aunt. When my dad questioned this, the solicitor told him that my aunt had been present when the will was written, despite promising that she had nothing to do with it. When confronted, my aunt initially tried to deny, but eventually admitted to lying to all of us. She showed us the will, and it confirmed what we already knew. The house and all its contents were now my aunt's. This included my granddad's war medals. He fought in the Second World War. When I told her that he had promised them to me before he passed away, she said, well, unless you have it in writing, you will have nothing in this house. Anyway, I already gave them to Clive. My heart sank. Clive, not his real name, obviously, was her eldest son, and the dictionary definition of a hack-up. He'd been in and out of prison for stealing and dealing substances. I knew that the moment that prick had got his hands on my granddad's medals, they would have been sold off. We looked into taking her to court over the will, but everyone we spoke to said that we probably wouldn't get anything out of it. She immediately put the house up for sale at close to £750,000, which is almost $1 million US. She had pissed off too many people in our town, so when she was gonna sell the house and move closer to her daughter who lives in a big city, an offer was made on the house and she put down a deposit on a house near the big city. And I thought that was that. Here's where karma comes into play. The people who wanted my nan's house had a survey done on the house to see if there were issues. And oh boy, were there. Turns out that the land the house was built on was way too soft for the type of the house it was, and it was sinking. It has sunk about 2 centimeters in the more than 40 years my nan and granddad had lived there, but the sinking was accelerating to 1 centimeter per year, which is like an inch every 3 years. This meant that within the next 3 years, the house would need some serious work or be knocked down. The new value of the house? £60,000, which is like $76,000. The buyers immediately pulled out, having not even put down a deposit. She couldn't buy her new house, but still had to pay the deposit on it. And while this was happening, she let Clive move in with her into her house that she rented from the council. He wasn't allowed to live in any of the council houses because he had trashed every single one he'd been given. Someone reported this and she was kicked out of her home. She was forced to move into my nan's old home as she couldn't live anywhere else. So there she is, living in a crumbling house with her crab-hat son and her partner. She was stuck there for 2 years. Every time I saw her, she would try and start talking to me, and I would just ignore her and walk off. One time I was walking away, she screamed, "Your mother deserved to pass away for having a prick like you," in the middle of a busy street. Someone reported her to the police, and she had official warning from them and was ridiculed on Facebook. Every time I saw her after that, she looked more and more miserable. Eventually, she sold the house for something like £85,000, which is $108,000, and moved in with her daughter in the big city. I lost contact with her and her kids after this. I thought karma had been issued. Oh, but karma still wasn't done with her. I bumped into one of her former friends and she told me what happened after she left our town. She moved into her daughter's home, let's call her Sue. But they only had a 3-bedroom house and 3 kids. My aunt and her partner had to live in the smallest room in the house while my aunt looked for a job and home to rent. Even with the money from the house, she couldn't afford a home anywhere. After about a month, my aunt's partner ran off after emptying her account. She was left stranded in Sue's house, not contributing anything, because all the money she makes goes into bingo. Eventually, Sue and my aunt get into a screaming match and my aunt said something along with the line of, "I should have gotten rid of you while I was pregnant." Sue immediately kicks her out of her house. So again, there's my aunt in a city where she knows nobody, no money, no home, and the last breed she had a smoldering wreck. Last anyone had heard, she was living in a caravan in the roughest part of the city, and she can no longer work because she's suffering early onset arthritis and can no longer move her hands. I know I shouldn't get joy of something like this happening to another person, but it does bring me some peace as to what happened. Anyway, on to the update. So, when I last left off, my aunt had been left abandoned in a big city and stuck in a caravan with crippling arthritis. By the way, caravan is the British word for trailer house. Well, a few weeks after my first post, I had gotten news that she had somehow found a new boyfriend. How? I don't know, because my aunt had the look and build of an obese pug, and that was when she was in her 30s. So what she looks like now in her mid-60s doesn't bear thinking about. Well, her and her new boy toy, I think I just threw up a little, decided to move to a seaside town and start a new life. Well, you can guess what happened. Boy toy must have gotten sick of her, or found out she had no money, so abandoned her. During an argument with her landlord, she suffered a heart attack, and while in hospital, she suffered another. She has recovered but was even more disabled than she was before. She has been given a home by her local council. But it's okay, guys, because Clive has come to live with her. Oh my god, Clive, the hack-up who sold my grandfather's medals and lost my aunt her home. The man is a walking episode of Jeremy Kyle. After my aunt left my hometown, things started to look up for Clive. Someone took a pity on him and gave him a job as laborer. And for a few months he was doing well, looking clean and well. Despite everything that had happened, I was glad he was getting his life back on track. Well, it turns out not. He was given a work van to go from job to job, and one day he came to work with a black eye and no van. He told everyone that he'd been carjacked and the van stolen. Sadly for Clive, they found the van, and a very confused man wondering why the police were arresting him. After the questioning and a text exchange, they found out that Clive had sold the van to the man and gave himself a black eye to make it look like a theft. Clive was arrested. He was massively lucky because his boss did not press charges. The boss told me later that he only did it out of respect of my grandfather, and all the police did was fine for the wasting police time. After burning through all the money he had, he was again homeless. His only lifeline was his younger brother. Let's call him Colin. Colin was in the armed forces and a pretty high rank from what I've heard. Colin was away from home most of the time on deployment, but had managed to buy a nice home in our town. He let Clive live in his house on the agreement that he pay part of the mortgage. You know where this is going. He stopped paying, stopped maintaining the house, and treated it like a substance den. Colin asked him to leave, but Clive used squatters' rights to prevent removal. Because Colin was overseas, he couldn't come back and sort it out and kick him out in person, and had no one in the area to wait for Clive to leave and change the locks behind him. So Clive lived in the house for 6 months. That was until a pissed-off father broke in and beat the crap out of Clive. You see, the father had found out that Clive, who is 41 by the way, had been inappropriately texting and selling devil's grass to a 13-year-old girl. After that, Clive abandoned the house and ran off to mommy. From what I've heard, Colin had stripped the house and is selling it to move closer to his base. We found most of this out from my aunt's daughter Sue, the one who kicked my aunt out. You see, my brother was on holiday in Turkey and just so happened to be in the hotel room next to Sue. She was very apologetic to my brother and thought we might like to know what had happened. She seemed to have a nice life and family and no longer lives in the house that she shared with her mom. I am genuinely happy for her, although I don't think I will try to mend our relationship. Sue had said some spiteful things to me in particular and had never reached out to apologize. I might still feel a little bit bitter for that. As for my aunt, I don't know how to feel. I do hope she gets better and grows enough of a spine to kick Clive out, as it will only lead her to more trouble. In some ways, I do wish I could rebuild a relationship with her. She is the last living link to my grandfather and grandmother, as well as my mother's only living sibling. But I know I could never trust her, never not see that face and the spitefulness that she had for me and my family, that she chose money, or what she thought was money, over us. And I don't think I can forgive that. But I'm not going to go out of my way to do her more harm. I'm just happy that I'm in a better place now. Wow, the karma had it good here. I hope you understand why this story is my favorite in this subreddit. Because it has all of the amazing elements. Huge sums of money that people lose, family drama, etc. Anyway, I hope that you loved it too. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I really want to get to 150 subscribers as soon as possible. Karen in a prayer group. What should I do? I just joined a new church and been there for some weeks. I joined a prayer group, which meets 2 times per week, and it is very small, like 5 of us, hosted by volunteers. It's a non-denominational church. There is a Karen type of lady who I am noticing keeps upping me and throws subs. Today we had to do prayer requests, and my request was to pray for my friend whose mom just recently passed. Also, my prayer report was that I was happy to see my niece graduate from high school and that I hope that everyone has had a happy Memorial Day weekend. After it was my turn, she yawns obnoxiously loudly and proceeds to contradict everything that I had said. She says it's not a happy Memorial Day, where it is only about mourning, and that I should understand there are students that did not graduate. I understand and I am empathetic what she said, but she constantly is contradicting everything that I say to try to get a rise out of me and to argue in a prayer group setting. How would you interact with a person like this? I would just ignore her, to be honest, because these type of people, they want you to react, and as soon as you stop reacting, they will move on to the next best person. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch that awesome video or this awesome playlist. See you next time!